G'day, welcome to ReDriven and welcome to the car that you buy when you want a Focus RS but can't even afford a Focus ST, the Fiesta ST. I'm kidding. Look, I actually used to own one of these cars and I genuinely bought it because I preferred it over the Focus ST. And dare I say it, I think it's more fun more of the time in the real world than a Focus RS. Well, look, at least it was when it was new. And look, yes, these when new were critically acclaimed, but that was a little while ago. So we want to know these days, now that they're not new, what are they like? What goes wrong with them? What do they like to live with every day? What do they cost to own and operate? And most importantly, should you buy one? But first up, what's it like to drive? So you're instantly aware that this car was designed to be fun all of the time, and even after this many years, it just still is. It exudes fun. But it was criticised even when new for having a pretty harsh ride, and even in my ST, yeah, I noticed it was not unbearable, but yeah, pretty uncomfortable on rough roads. But in this one, I feel like maybe the suspension's like smoothed out a bit with the years and kilometres on it. Like it's still bloody firm, but it just feels a bit easier to live with than mine used to when it was new. But handling wise, it has lost nothing with age. It still feels so enthusiastic to change direction. Again, it's just so involving. It's so fun. Now, sounds wise, this car has an induction kit and so good. It sounds throaty and aggressive. I love it. In saying that, there is a bit of a rattle coming from the rear hatch. That's a bit of a common thing with these cars, but besides the rattle, it just sounds, yeah, awesome. Now, in terms of the engine, it feels so torquey. And because the car's quite small and quite lightweight, it makes that whole car feel energetic all the time. And where the torque is exactly where you want it to be when you're driving around town. So it's always just fun to kind of nip through traffic and through some tight spaces. Perfection. Like, it's not old school turbo lag as such. It's not like nothing and then all the power comes on, because it is responsive lower in the rev range, but it has got this just beautiful kind of muscular, curve of torque that comes in. So it's kind of like the perfect amount of old school yet still new school. Also, it feels faster than it actually is. Like, it's not a slow car by any means, but it's not fast in terms of modern fast cars, but because of how small and light it is, it feels faster than it is all the time. No bad thing. Another thing that's so special about this car, it feels like Ford made sure that all the control surfaces work like a team. So what I mean is the steering resistance, the shift feel, even the weight or the spring loading on the pedals, it all feels cohesive together. So it just feels special all the time when you're driving it. It's lost nothing. But one of the problems, and this isn't just with the ST, but a lot of powerful front wheel drive cars, is actually getting that power to the ground. And it's something that I wish my car had, and I wish this car had, was a mechanical limited slip front diff. Because I do find, especially coming out of a roundabout, if you plant your foot, it just spins up that inside front wheel, which is fun, but not that efficient. Look, overall here in the real world, in suburban streets and metropolitan areas, to drive, it is still just a superb little car. It's so much fun and so involving all of the time, and it makes even a trip down to the shops to pick up the milk or a coffee, it makes it feel like a rally special stage. But before we get any further into this video, what even is a Fiesta ST?
So the Fiesta ST is basically the performance-focused member of the 6th generation Fiesta family, the Fiesta being Ford's global small car. But unlike the more conservative Fiestas sold here in Australia that are manufactured in Thailand, the ST is built in Germany. Here in Australia, the ST was available from 2013 to 2017 purely as a 3-door hatch, but other markets also received the 5-door hatch variants.
Now, obviously, there's a whole bunch of specific information about the ST that we could delve into in this video, but if we did, the video would go forever. So instead of doing that in the video, we have gathered all that information and we've stuck it in our incredibly handy and free cheat sheets over at ReDriven.com. But how's the interior wearing after a few years? Firstly, the seating position for me is pretty bloody close to perfect. Some people do complain that the seat's a little bit too high, and I get it. If it was this much lower, it'd be absolutely spot on, but I personally love it. And the seats themselves, I adore these seats. These Recaros I find super comfy on a long trip, but still supportive. But in saying that, my partner hated these seats, constantly complained about them. You know you did, babe. You know I'm right. Besides that, in terms of ergonomics, everything's really nice. Everything's easy to get to. There is It feels like 1,000 buttons in the center console, so if you're a fan of buttons, great. If you'd rather a touchscreen, not so good. My argument against that is that you do get used to where the buttons are, and there's something just nice about a tactile button rather than having to take your eyes off the road and push a screen. So I personally prefer the buttons. Now, in terms of wear and tear in this particular car, excellent. Even the steering wheel, like the texture of the leather still has texture to it. The seats are in excellent condition. The bolsters aren't wearing too badly. They're a little bit softer on the edge. All the spots you touch, like up here, the sort of silver paintwork is still silver. The black plastics aren't too scratched up. This car does have an aftermarket gear knob, which is really, really nice, really lovely to use, but wear and tear, really good. One thing to be wary of, but, is look up here, and especially down here, for like any holes, like if something has been screwed into the dashboard, like a boost gauge or one of those tuning controllers. Yeah, you can possibly find some dodgy modifications if there's holes in the dash. Now, in terms of practicality in the front seat, pretty bloody good. You've got good sized door bins which will easily hold your ReDriven water bottle just here. You've got a spot here that doesn't hold bloody anything. I know that from experience, it's annoying. Yeah, you can put the keys there, but they rattle around. You've got a spot down here for your phone that also has the USB and auxiliary input and a little 12-volt power charger there. You've got 3 cup holders. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, mate, that's only 2 cup holders. No, there's a middle cup holder for small pretentious coffees like macchiatos and piccolos and espressos like the ones I love. There's also excellent size storage bin here and bloody good sized glove box. Now, speaking of another small but critically acclaimed and super effective small device, in the back seat, I'm exactly 20.65 Swiss Army knives tall. This is in my driving position. And it's sort of comfortable. Like, obviously my legs are spread, which is a bit rude, and there's not a whole lot of feet room. And also the headrest sticks into your upper back, but the easy fix is lift that up and it's suddenly a little bit more comfortable. It's a little bit claustrophobic in here as well because the shoulder line of the rear window is quite high, so you feel quite hunkered down and you're in a dark cave of ST. As far as wear and tear goes back here, no wear and tear because only a fool would sit back here for any length of time to actually make any kind of damage. So yeah, no wear and tear, it's great. Practicality in the back seat, you do have some storage bins down here that have like a recess for a cup, but it's kind of hard to get to. I don't know why you'd ever need a storage bin that big back here, but it's there anyway. Plus you've got 2 spots for your ReDriven script back there. Oh, and also a 12-volt power outlet back here. But in terms of practicality in the boot, for the size of this car, pretty bloody good. Also, the seats do fold down, but there's always a massive lip there. Now, in saying that, I know from experience that you can easily fit a full-size drum kit and half like a DJ rig in here all at the same time. But how are the tech and features, and are they safe? Well, from launch, Ford loaded the ST here in Australia with loads of tech and features because it was basically the top of the range Fiesta, and it was also in direct competition with the Polo GTI and Clio RS.
But in terms of the ST, from launch the car featured 17-inch alloy wheels wrapped in performance tyres with a subtle but aggressive body kit to excite the design, while front fog lights, automatic headlights, rain-sensing wipers and rear parking sensors assist in making life easy.
While inside you can expect
a decent-sounding 8-speaker Sony stereo featuring, as we mentioned, about 4,000 buttons, a tiny 4-inch TFT display, Ford's first incarnation of its sync interface with Bluetooth connectivity, Recaro seats that, as I mentioned, my partner despised but I personally loved, climate control, remote central locking, push-button start, lovely LED ambient interior lighting at nighttime, and a sound symposer which further amplifies the intake noise into the cabin.
However, there was a subtle facelift in 2017. We'll get to the details of that a little bit later on, but that upgrade brought with it
a new grey metallic finish to those alloy wheels along with red painted brake calipers for the outside, while inside the updates included satellite navigation and a reversing camera shown through a slightly larger 5-inch non-touch display, but sadly, no Apple CarPlay or Android Auto.
Now, in terms of fitting like Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, how easy that is depends on who you speak to, because we've read reports saying that it's both a complete nightmare and also that it's really, really easy. And the same can be said about fitting Ford's Sync 2 or Sync 3. And yes, we do know that other markets did receive Ford Sync 2 and Sync 3 standard and larger screens, you bastards. Now, in terms of the safety of the Ford Fiesta ST, well, you know what, those crazy kids at the Australian Safety Authority, ANCAP, they never got round to testing the ST, but they did test the 3-door version of the base spec Fiesta, and it scored a perfect 5 stars, so it's pretty safe to assume that the ST will also receive a perfect 5 stars. But to give you overview of what safety features and technology that the ST has, here's me doing another voiceover, but this time I'm going to do it in my best Shakespearean style.
Oh, sweet Fiesta ST, shall I compare these standard safety features to a summer's day? Look, and thou shalt see but 7 airbags. Come hither and feast your eyes upon the ABS. By my troth, I tell thee, I am almost sick for one's unmatchable beauty of the brake assist. Thy powerlessness moves me more than the eloquence of yet ye electronic brake force distribution, and the moon methinks looks with a watery eye upon the electronic stability control with 3 selectable modes. Seest thou this sweet sight? 'Tis traction control. Gallop apace, you fiery-footed steeds with seatbelts with pretensioners and load limiters. I'll tarry no longer with you. Farewell. Parting is but a sweet sorrow.
I should also mention that the ST comes with Ford's emergency assistance feature, which basically calls 000 or whatever your country's emergency number is in the event of an accident. You can also cancel that call. Again, for the full breakdown of all the safety and tech features that the ST has, just jump on ReDriven.com and check out that cheat sheet. But what else did those midlife updates come with that we mentioned earlier?
As far as our updates go, the ST's major midlife refresh occurred for the 2017 model, and aside from the features that we mentioned earlier, not a whole lot else changed.
Some international markets did receive upgrades during the ST's life cycle, but here in Australia, because these were so highly spec'd from the start, Ford Australia didn't see the need to upgrade it until about 2017.
Variance-wise, here in Australia, we received just the single variant. However, Europe was treated to an upgraded ST200 in 2016.
But for those requiring, let's say, more horses, Ford Australia did offer a factory-backed mount-tune tuning kit that upped the power figures by 24 kilowatts and 80 newton meters. Yummy. Actually, before we get into what goes wrong with these, we've got to make a bit of a shout out to all the Ford and ST owners groups, all the Ford mechanics and technicians we spoke to, and anyone that published a blog or a survey or a report on these cars, because we've used all of that and their information to make this video. So thank you guys. Okay, so what goes wrong? Well, look, starting with the exterior, there are some reports that the key fob sometimes doesn't work, and that requires you to use the actual key like some kind of pleb. It's not a common issue as such, but it can happen. Also, being a used car and a performance car at that, there are a bunch of really important things that you need to check out before you buy one, like accident damage and dodgy repair work. But hence why we've made the ultimate used car buyer's guide, the link for which is just up here and down there somewhere. Guys, I cannot emphasize this enough. Please watch that video before you buy any used car, because it literally could save you thousands. Now inside, there are some reports of like a plastic ticking sound that comes from the dashboard. It's normally just the air conditioning actuator, and it's a pretty simple fix. Some cars built from 2015 to 2017 have like a rattling sound coming from the steering column. Now my ST actually had that same problem, and it took Ford, like honestly, dozens of trips to the dealership to kind of sort it out, but they did sort it out eventually. Now before we get into mechanically what these can suffer from, look, the only way that we can keep making these videos for you guys is with your support, and the best way to support us is simply by hitting the like, subscribe and bell buttons. Just doing that, oh, and also sharing our content with your mates, that'd be bloody awesome. Now, mechanically, what goes wrong with the Fiesta ST? Well, look, I'd love to tell you, but I can't because I'm not a qualified mechanic. But Jim is.
Engine and transmission wise, all the Fiesta STs are a 1.6 litre turbocharged petrol, and the transmissions are all front wheel drive and 6-speed. The engine itself is marketed as an EcoBoost engine, but is very different to the EcoBoost you'll find in its older sibling, the Ford Focus. They're a pretty good little engine, and they are capable, when tuned properly, of making some pretty impressive numbers. And there are plenty of tuned ones out there, so if you're looking, beware of crappy tunes and shitty mods, because if they're pushed too hard, all bets are off in terms of what goes wrong. Sometimes they crack pistons, they have head gasket issues, and in serious cases, crack blocks. In standard unmodified form as a daily driver, they're okay. You want to make sure that all the recalls are up to date and done properly. One of the problems they had was with localised overheating, which in extreme cases can cause an engine bay fire. Servicing and repairing these, they have an interesting timing belt schedule, which is 240,000 Ks or every 10 years. Now, that's all well and good in a perfect world, but what we have seen on plenty of occasions is the water pump starts leaking long before then. We've also seen a few instances where the timing belt tensioner bearing fails. And if you have any camshaft oil seal or crankshaft oil seal leaks, that will also dramatically shorten the life of the timing belt. So my tip is get it all done at 150,000 Ks. The right-hand engine mount tends to lose its cushioning qualities after about 5 years, and the engine won't fall out of the car, but it does make it feel like you're driving around in a dodgy massage chair powered by a dentist drill. The T6 manual transmission, which they all have, does have a few problems with synchros, causing crunching into gears, and there were some reports of premature clutch failure. Back in the day, some of the clutches were done under warranty, but that is not happening anymore. The problems we see with the synchros and the clutches tend to be more prevalent in cars that are tuned and driven by some of the younger folks. So yeah, this is definitely one of those cars where you need to have a good look and find out as much information as you can about the service and repair history. Find out what mods are done and see if they're any good, and have a good look at the person who's selling it to you, because quite often the problems you will have are from that previous owner.
Now, in saying all of that, look, our goal with ReDriven is to make this like a global community platform for used cars, and we generally find it's those that own these cars that are the true experts. So if you've noticed in this video that we've missed something major, can you please let us know in the comments so we can all learn from your experience? But how much are these? Currently, pricing here in Australia kicks off from around about $15,000 and tops out at around about 30 grand. Something like this, a 2015 model in great condition with well under 100,000 Ks, around about 20,000 bucks. And for some international pricing, it's down there somewhere. But be extremely careful of modified, especially badly modified examples. If it's been modified, how's it been done? Are the components of the highest quality? But what do they cost to own and operate? Now, in terms of fuel consumption, Ford claims a figure of 6.2 litres per 100 Ks, but the good news is this car is seeing an average of 6.4 litres per 100 Ks, and both the owner and myself have quite a heavy right foot, so that's a good thing. And let's be honest, if you're looking at a Fiesta ST, you probably couldn't give a shit what the fuel economy is anyway. But after all of that, should you buy one? Well, look, there is no denying that this is an awesome little car, and I absolutely adored the one I owned, and actually, after living with this for a little while, it makes me miss mine so much. But if you should buy one, it's a tough call.
While we do recommend buying a mint condition example that has clearly been looked after and maintained fastidiously, just like this one, there are unfortunately quite a few Fiesta STs on the used market that have been driven with a complete disregard for mechanical sympathy and have just not been cared for.
So if we're talking near abused STs, no, God no, don't buy one of those. I'm not saying that these things are a fragile car at all, but they certainly don't like being mistreated, much like me. So should you buy one? It's a cautious yes. Awesome little car, but just do your homework and be careful. Ford's ingenious, what's it called? Emergency assistance feature. That's terrible. Ford's very clever emergency assistance. Again, for the full breakdown of, you know, all the, can just jump on ReDriven.com and check out the, Here we go, slow down. Okay, but if not one of these, what else should you look at? Well, look, Renault Clio RS is a definite viable option. The Polo GTI, another good car, but honestly, this is the pick in that category. But what do you guys think? Would you buy one of these? Let us know in the comments. And remember, can you please hit those like, subscribe, and bell buttons and share our content as much as you can? That'd be awesome. See you next time.